Well, now that we have talked about VRF Lite a little bit, let's uh let's do it. Let's put them together. Let's build this stuff. Uh, as we look, this is going to be a little bit more in depth. We're going to create a couple of VRFs here. We're going to create a couple of tier one gateways, some segments, attach some virtual machines to those segments. Notice these two VMs are on the same subnet. So we're going to show off some routing isolation, but we're going to use the common BGP T0 gateway 01 that we looked at and set up a little while ago. We're also going to set up some brand new uplinks on VLANs 10 and 20, right, to FRR so that we can get some fun and excitement going on there. So, as always, we're going to start with preparing for the lab, making sure that we have the right things open. So here it's the vSphere client and the NSX UI. And you'll notice I've still got our customer database, our 3-tier application tab open. We can close that. The Web01 console, we can close that as well, leaving us with vCenter and with NSX. So that's great. That's just fine. So here we're going to come up and create another uplink segment for our VRFs, but we're not going to do a single VLAN segment like we did, uh, with our with our OSPF and our BGP gateways. But we're going to create a VLAN trunk segment. This will still go in the VLAN transport zone, but here we're going to add not one, but two VLANs. That's what tells us that this is a trunk segment, right? There's no toggle anywhere. It's just I've added in more than one VLAN here. So we're going to watch for VLAN tagged traffic. And so no, we don't want to continue configuring. We're not going to worry about that. So we've got our segment. Now we need to go to tier 0 gateways. Under tier 0 gateways, remember when we pulled this down, it was a drop down menu, not just add a tier 1 gateway or a tier 0 gateway. We had options. So here we're going to select rather, a VRF. And what are we going to do? Tier 0 GW VRF red. VRF. The V and the B, they're right next to each other on the US keyboard. So that's just a typo. So we're going to call it that, and we're going to connect this right to the BGP T0. So what we're doing there with the connected tier 0 gateway is we're choosing the parent tier 0 gateway for this VRF instance, and so there it is, right? We've set that. We're inheriting Edge Cluster 1. We inherit the HA mode. And so at this point, we're ready to save, right? Because just like a tier 0 gateway, I cannot configure my interfaces yet. So we'll go ahead and save that. And yes, we want to continue configuring. I want to continue configuring. I want to continue configuring interfaces. And so we'll set the interface. And you'll notice this is all very, very familiar. This looks almost just like what we did with our tier 0 gateway. Right? Almost exactly the same. We're going to leave that as an external 192.168.10.2/24. We are going to connect that to our VRF uplink trunk. Now, your lab guide just told you to name this uplink dash trunk. I don't know if you noticed that. I went a little above and beyond there, but you guys know how I am about descriptions, right? So you'll see me do a couple of extra things like that here. This uplink needs to go on Edge 02. And here's the big difference. in interfaces for our VRFs is I have to have this access VLAN ID. And here we're going to put this, right, VLAN or VRF red. Right, VRF red is going to go on VLAN 10. So we'll go ahead and save that, and we will close this configuration. If we open this back up, right, we should see that now that's successful. I didn't refresh that like I have on the previous ones. And that is that. Now, what are we going to do yet? Well, now we have to turn on BGP. We still want dynamic routing. So we want to turn on BGP, but we notice that the local autonomous system number is inherited, graceful restart is inherited, enter SRI BGP is off, and I cannot change that. So we've got some differences in how things like BGP get set up, but in the grand scheme of things, it's kind of the same. So we're going to set our neighbors. We still need a BGP neighbor, and so here we're going to set up 192.168.10.1 as my remote. That's going to be Autonomous System 10. And we'll go ahead and select our 10.2 source IP address. It should be pretty straightforward. We're going to save this. There we go. Now we have a successful configuration. And if we look at our information on Edge 02, we see that we have an idle connection right now. That's okay. That's okay. We're going to go ahead and close this, and now we need to save our BGP configuration and go into our route redistribution. I can find it this time. So we'll go ahead and add a route redistribution rule. T0 GW01. No, not 01. VRF red route redistribution. And we'll go ahead and set this. And what do we want to do? We want to do static routes and connected interfaces for both T0 and T1. Right, just kind of doing a little bit of planning ahead here. And we'll go ahead and add that. And we'll apply here. Make sure this says we're going to redistribute via BGP, and we'll go ahead and save that configuration. Right. Now we're going to close editing. So that sets up our VRF T0 GW VRF red. Right. We can see it's a VRF by the little VRF badge on the name, and we want to do this all over again. Right, but this time it's going to be T0 GW-VRF blue. VRF blue. We're still going to hang this off of BGP T0 GW01. We'll go ahead and save this. And yeah, we want to go ahead and continue because now I need to add my interface. So T0 GW VRF blue uplink. Go ahead and plug my description in. 192.168.20.2/24 is our IP address. We're going to connect this to the same uplink segment, the trunk segment. I'm going to specify an access VLAN ID of 20 here. Let's make sure we plug this into Edge 2 as well. Use this up for Edge 2. So there we have that. Refresh. That should be good. We'll go ahead and close that. And then we'll set up, not routing, we need to set up BGP now. So we're going to turn on BGP. We're going to set our own neighbor here for VLAN 20, for uplink 20 on 20.1, remote autonomous system number 20. There's my source. And there we go. We're just repeating all the same stuff, just a couple of different IP addresses here. Right? So we're getting some good practice setting up uplink interfaces and BGP neighbors. We'll go ahead and save that. We'll set up route redistribution. Let's go add that redistribution. All right, we'll set this and we'll do static and connected just like we have. Pretty consistent. We'll apply and we'll add the rules, apply the rules, and save the rule or save the redistribution. We'll go ahead and close editing. All right, now we've got our VRFs. Now we've got our VRFs. Now we need to create some tier 1 gateways to put on those, right? So we'll add a tier 1 gateway here, T1 GW VRF red. Distributed only is what we want here again. And here in the linked tier 0 gateway, right, let's go ahead and connect to our VRF red tier 0. We'll expand out route advertisement. We'll make sure static and connected routes are set, and we'll go ahead and save. No, I do not want to continue configuring, but I want to do the same thing. Let's go ahead and do the same thing for blue. So T1 GW VRF blue. And again, it's distributed. We want to link this up to VRF blue, and we'll advertise static routes and connected segments. We'll go ahead and save this. No, we don't want to continue configuring, right? So that's our tier 1 gateways. We're getting closer. We're getting closer to being able to test this. Task 5, we're going to build segments. So back down to segments we go. We're just going right down the navigation panel. I'm going to add a segment. What are we going to call this? VRF red segment. This is going to be connected to T1 gateway, VRF red. I notice if we scroll down, we could also connect to the tier 0 gateway, but that's not what we want. We want a multi-tier topology here. This needs to be an overlay network, so we'll plug this into the prod overlay VLAN TZ, and then 172.16.40.40.1 is the gateway IP address, right? Insider notation, that's fine. We'll save that, and no, we don't want to continue configuring. We'll go ahead and add a second one, VRF blue segment. Connect this to the T1 GW VRF blue gateway. Again, overlay, prod overlay TZ. And 172.16.40.1/24. Again. Now, why are we doing a duplicate IP address here? Why do I have the same IP address on 2 different segments? Why do I have the same network? Well, that might be a thing that we're using VRFs to provide for, is duplicating IP addresses. I have my red network maybe going off to one set of infrastructure. My blue network connects off to a different set of infrastructure, right? VLAN 10 takes me over to this router, and VLAN 20 takes me over to that router. And so we may have a case of the same IP addresses in different routing domains. And that's what we're splitting up here, is routing domains with my VRFs. So having these duplicated IP addresses is not such a big deal in our configuration context. And so here we see our VRF red segment, and up here at the top, our VRF blue. Now we need to put some VMs on these segments. So here's where we go back to vSphere. And I'm going to go ahead and grab Ubuntu 1A. We'll edit the settings here. And instead of attaching this to production, we're going to browse and we're going to find our red network. So VRF red segment. There we go. We'll add that in. We are connected. That should be okay. We're going to do the same thing. Well, we're going to do a similar thing for Ubuntu 2A, but instead of connecting Ubuntu 2A to the red network, we're going to go ahead and connect Ubuntu 2A to my blue network, right? My VRF blue segment. Make sure we're connected there, and that's all right. So Now I have my virtual machines attached. Now, what do we want to do? Let's do some testing now. I can come in and open the web console. There we go. There's my web console link, and log in here. Right? Username is VMware. Password is capital V, capital M, WARE1 bang. Same password we've seen over and over again. That's right there in the lab guide in task 7, step 1. Step 1C tells us what the username and password is. And so verify connectivity by pinging from the VM console to a remote network upstream. So how about ping C3 10.0.10.11? Right, 10.0.10.11. Look at that. There we go. We can get there. It says verify the packets follow VRF red to reach. So trace route -n 10.0.10.11. Right. So here we're going to go through, and we see that we went through 172.16.40.1. That was my upstream gateway for my VRF, right? So that's kind of an idea there. Now we want to also check. Ubuntu 2. So we're going to open a web console to that. Again, VMware and capital VM WARE. Nah, I can't type now. Capital VM WARE1 bang for the password. And we want to check from here. Can we get upstream to the 20 network? So 10.0.20.11. And look at that. We're making it through. Can I get there with a trace route? Right? What does a trace route show me? Well, a trace route's going to show me basically the same thing we saw on the other, right? 172.16.40.1. Now, if we look at that second hop in there, 100.64.0.4, notice we look at the second hop here, 100.64.0.2. That tells us that we're reaching two different gateways, two different tier 0 gateways or VRF gateways in our configuration here. We're getting to different VRF gateways going out. So that's how we're going to tell. Right? That's how we're going to tell, that these are actually using the different VRFs. Now let's see what goes on inside the VRFs themselves. So here we need to switch over to MT Putty. And we want to connect to NSX Edge 02. So we find SA NSX Edge 02 right here. And we're looking at this. Go ahead and accept the certificate. We're looking at Edge 02 because that's where we configured all of our uplinks, our tier 0 and our VRF service routers are going to live on Edge 02, right? That's what we configured. So what do we have going on here? Well, now let's do a set CLI timeout. Let me learn how to type. There's our CLI timeout set, and we can get our gateways. Gateways? That's not going to work very well. How about I spell gateways properly? And here we see all of the gateway objects that are realized here. And so, there's my service router for my tier 0 gateway and my distributed router for that tier 0 gateway, my service router for VRF red, and my distributed router for VRF red, SR and DR for VRF blue, and so on and so forth. So we can see all of these different objects. Now, what we're looking for is the VRF ID of the service router for VRF red. So this right here. And in this particular case, we are at VRF 5, right? This may vary. You may not see VRF 5. You may see a different VRF ID, but you'll see a VRF ID here. And so now we just type VRF 5. and that enters the service router namespace here in NSX CLI. So, if I type get route, I can see the routing table. And here we see, my 172.16.40 network, right? A T1C, tier 1 connected. I can see all of my flags. Oh, I don't want to change that. I want to highlight all that. I can see all of my different flags. I can see which routes are selected, which are in the forwarding table, which have been installed where. I can see, did the route come from tier 0 or tier 1, and what type of route is it? So all of my flags are very, very, very helpful here. So, I can see that. From BGP, I'm learning a route to 192.168.30.0 and to 10.0.10.0. Notice we checked, that was our connectivity check on the red network. So, we can kind of see what else is going on here. Now, we can go ahead and exit this and get out of that namespace. Now, we want to do the same thing and look at VRF Blue. How, I can still see my get gateways output that I just ran. I can still see that on the screen, so I don't have to run that again. But here we see VRF 7. If I don't see this on the screen, if I've been, poking around and seeing what commands can do what, then I may have to run get gateways again. That's fine. But here I can do a VRF7, and I can do a get get routes for my blue service router. And here we see 192.168.40, 10.0.0.20, but also 172.16.40 here. But we can see and compare the differences between the routing tables for VRF red and VRF blue. Right? Now, something we didn't do. Something I didn't do uh, when we were looking at VRF red is BGP, right? Get BGP neighbor summary. And so here we can see our neighbor summary. Let's go back to VRF 5. And look at my neighbor summary. Right, we can see here the difference between the two neighbors, right, and what we have going on. So we can see autonomous system 10 and autonomous system 20 and see what's going on there. Right. So that just gives us some things we can look at, and so we're going to go ahead and get out of that, and we're going to go back to now the web console. So where's my web browser? And we'll go back to the Ubuntu 1A console. Here we happen to be here. And we're going to ping 172.16.40.12. If you remember from the diagram, that's the IP address of Ubuntu 2A. And there should be no surprise. We cannot see that. We cannot get there, right? Same thing if we try 10.0.20.11, right? Remember, 20, that's upstream from my my other VRF, not the one I'm connected to here. So here we get an unsuccessful set of connectivity here. Now, if we come over to Ubuntu 2A, if we come over to, there we go, come over to that. All right, what about Ubuntu 1A? Can I ping Ubuntu 1A? No, I can't. How about up through VLAN 10? Well, I can't get to VLAN 10 either because the routing domains are isolated, right? I've purposely set that up. My routing domains are very much isolated. So that's my VRFs. That's configuring VRFs. We did a lot in this lab. Maybe you looked through it a couple of different times just to make sure you got everything. But we've done a lot in this lab. That's what we've got for labs for routing. We're going to come back The next lab that's going to start getting us into security. That's the next topic if you're watching this all in series. So come back and see us for more cool security stuff coming up in the future.